Bitcoin just hit a new all-time high. So why are Google searches for Bitcoin near all-time low? Let's mine deep. Bitcoin has had 4 distinct halving cycles since it began, and each one of them has had very similar boom-bust cycles in the US dollar price. So what makes this next cycle different? Back in 2013, Bitcoin had its first major explosion into mainstream spotlight.
Bitcoin is an electronic online digital currency, was created about 3 years ago, kind of flew under the radar. Now it's starting to actually gain some traction.
Bitcoin is now up to $111. It's an all-time high and it's continuing to rise. I've seen it break 3 times today. It went up to 110 and this is the highest that it's been. It's ridiculous.
In 2013, we didn't have Michael Saylor waxing philosophy.
Bitcoin is an instrument of economic empowerment.
Or Bitcoin ETFs. The primary demand for Bitcoin came from all but one exchange, a thriving dark web market. And surprisingly, a lot of big corporations accepting it as payment. In 2013, you could spend Bitcoin at Microsoft, Steam, even a few Subway locations. But after the Mt. Gox collapse, many of those businesses took down their Bitcoin payment gateways, citing too much volatility. Not to mention, 880,000 Bitcoin were compromised in the Mt. Gox hack, worth about $61 billion today. It took Bitcoin 35 months to return to its previous all-time high in 2017, making this one of the longest bear markets in Bitcoin history. In 2017, Bitcoin nearly hit $20,000, and as of today, that moment was the most searched occasion for how to buy Bitcoin in history. That year, Bitcoin underwent a massive hard fork, several exchange hacks, the China mining ban, and yet it came back swinging stronger than ever. After the euphoria died down, Bitcoin crashed back down to around 3,000 and stayed in Bitcoin winter for nearly 27 months before returning to 20K. But this time around, Bitcoin builders went hard. The first Bitcoin circular economies popped up, the Lightning Network got going, and the groundwork was laid for the helicopter money around the corner. If you put your $1,200 stimulus check into Bitcoin, it would have been worth nearly $15,000 today. Maybe even more depending on when you're watching this video. In 2021, Bitcoin hit another fresh all-time high of 69,420. Nice. But this time, it wasn't just you and me buying it. Entire countries like El Salvador were stacking sats. Companies like Tesla and SpaceX were buying, although they paper-handed quite a bit. Come on, Elon. And even Trump had to have a word about Bitcoin. The problem was, some people wanted Bitcoin so badly that they devised over-leveraged fractional reserve lending systems for it, and even outright Ponzi schemes to scoop it up. But all things considered, this actually led to one of the shortest bear markets in history. And for the first time, Bitcoin is now breaking to new all-time highs, even before the halving. So why should you care? Over the last 15 years, Bitcoin has established a very similar pattern, ripping prices shortly after the last halving, followed by 2 to 3 year bear markets with a significant collapse before the next halving. But what if this time is truly different? Bitcoin now has a wall of capital flowing into it from BlackRock and other ETF issuers, and yet fewer people than ever are actually looking up what Bitcoin is. Maybe all the Michael Saylor podcast clips and Bitcoin books in Christmas stockings have finally paid off. Or we're entering a new era in Bitcoin's life altogether, where it has become so pervasive that it's hard for the whole world to only pay attention to it once every 4 years. Bitcoin often gets compared to the tulip bubble or the dot-com bubble, but both of those only lasted 2 to 3 years and never had a second, third, or fourth coming. When the world realizes Bitcoin is here to stay, who knows what will happen to the price? But what we do know is that as Bitcoin becomes a certainty for the future of money, there won't be as many excuses to neglect adopting it in your day-to-day life. El Salvador has used Bitcoin to lower remittance costs. Restaurant franchises like Tajinis are using it as a treasury asset. Off-grid communities in Peru are using it as their first digital bank account. Heck, even Guatemala is using Bitcoin's ledger to verify election results. So cheers to a new Bitcoin all-time high. And if you've made it this far, it only gets better from here.
You do not sell your Bitcoin.
Don't miss Daniel Prince Backstage. So how do you feel that the government is educating our children?
Poorly. World schooling is the idea that you take your family on a world trip, and yes, the big feedback is going to be, oh well, we can't all afford to do that. Actually, you'll find it's a lot cheaper to travel, especially in different countries, than it is to actually just live day to day in your own. So I actually have a book called Choose Life where I discuss this and it, depict everything that we went through, all of the thought processes that we went through to make this change happen for us. And when you see the difference, when you detach children from that institution and you just give them the air to breathe, that's when real learning starts happening. Because what you have in the classroom, there's a huge difference, and John Holt and John Taylor Gatto have spoken about this at length. There is a complete difference between learning and teaching. What goes on in the schools is teaching. And John Holt had the epiphany, why is I teach, but they don't learn. And that is what brought him to the rabbit hole of, we need to get these kids out of this classroom, out of this forced association. There's nothing social going on in there. The only socialization that's going on there is being bred to walk and talk and do things in a certain way. That's being socialized. Is the education system broken? And it's not. It's working exactly as designed, which started in the late 1800s in the US and has been globally pushed out. It's global now. It's the same in every single country.
But what was that moment for you that made it click, that you realized, because I'm assuming you went to school?
Yeah, that was a big moment in my life for 18 years. And I had an epiphany, like nothing seems right here, and I just wanted to get out. So I escaped after reading a book called The 4-Hour Workweek by Tim Ferriss. Changed my mind on life, and I realized I was living a deferred lifestyle, and I wanted to live a more proactive life, and I wanted to be part of my kids' education, and I wanted to spend more time with my wife. So we left the country and we started traveling, and that's when it's like, oh my God, this is crazy. I can't believe how much they're learning and how quickly they are learning it, and seeing it with your own eyes and being part of it and realizing I'm learning along with them. And like, oh wow, learning's fun. Learning isn't sitting down with a textbook and being forced to do your homework for 2 hours after you've spent 8 hours already at school. Like, that's disgusting. That's slavery. So once I had seen that, I had to keep going down the alternative education rabbit hole very quickly.
Gosh, and Bitcoin is the disruption to this whole system. And how did you find Bitcoin?
I found Bitcoin at the same time I found this rabbit hole. So I was in a mess. I was going down 2 rabbit holes, full speed, warp speed at the same time. But the way I was doing that is because I had freed myself from my fiat existence. I had walked away from a job. I'd walked away from a high salary, high powered, hey, I'm an international financier job. No more, gone. So it afforded me the time to actually think, to actually read, to listen, and to experience it. So I experienced the homeschooling rabbit hole and the Bitcoin rabbit hole in tandem, and that's why I have a foot in both of these camps, and that's why there's Scott and Tali out here who are selling their hodl up game. And they've got the tagline up there, homeschoolers are Bitcoiners that just don't know it yet. And it's the other way around. Bitcoiners, everybody here, everybody that listened to that panel, I guarantee you their head's going to be spinning because they're Bitcoiners. They've separated money from state. They will separate education from state. It's just a matter of time. It's just more conversations like this and having people like Corey come and learn about Bitcoin as well, which is amazing. That is going to help people gain the confidence and go for it. The network effect of homeschooling is going to just explode as the network effect of Bitcoin does.